And let's bring up our last guest of the day, Victoria. Hey,
Mhm.
Victoria, how are you?
I'm fine. Can you hear me?
We got you loud and clear. All right. Well, right on. Well, let me step off the stage, give you the floor, and take it away.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me again here. Well, I'm a little bit nervous because this is my first conference talk in general, but I hope you will like it. Well, first of all, I would like to say that I chose this topic just not by accident. I encounter AI every day, maybe in my career as well. So that's why I kind of interested. Okay, is AI being used on the other side and how is it being used generally? So that's why I kind of chose this topic. And also I chose a kind of character from a movie for my topic. It's Hal. I will introduce a little bit about him to you. So don't be very anxious about it. And also, let's get started. So, first of all, a little bit about me. I'm a security engineer with around 3 years of experience in cybersecurity. Before that, I was working in another IT field, and then I transitioned to this field. And actually, my path was a little bit the hard way. I have no computer science degree, so I just learned by all by myself and practiced a lot. Had so and I'm still learning actually. So and got to cybersecurity. Had worked for a couple of companies in this field. I'm currently based in Canada, but I'm originally from Armenia, so also lived in some countries as well. So and let's go ahead. And first of all, as I said, I'm a movie fan, so that's why I kind of decided to choose a movie figure for my talk as well. Hal is a character from pretty old movie. It's a science fiction movie called 2001 Space Odyssey, actually directed by Stanley Kubrick. I think most of you might know this character in this movie in general. HAL was a kind of a system that had full control over navigation, life support, communications on the spaceship. He was trusted more than humans actually during this mission, and he was designed to act autonomously. So why and he was kind of a main antagonist in the movie. That's why I chose him because he was on the dark side. He kind of transitioned to the dark side rather than being kind and welcoming AI. So yeah, and he was kind of used. He famously said once that this mission is too important for me to allow to jeopardize it. So this saying shows how kind of it transitions from being a system designed to support people to system being against them in the end. So I just want to want to spoil the movie a lot, but this is why I kind of chose this character. And let's go further and speak a little bit about how hackers are generally using AI today. AI, let's be honest, AI currently is not replacing attackers, and I think it won't replace them totally, like in the near future, in the foreseeable future, as I think. But it is removing friction and it is helping a lot to make the job easier for hackers to get into the systems and actually to kind of cheat and uh, deceive people generally. And so the first, and I think the most popular field that they are utilizing AI is phishing. They are also writing malwares, also doing lots of recon through this AI, also doing lots of frauds and impersonation, as you can see, and you will see later in the slides. And AI allows them to kind of launch campaigns at big scales. So like thousands or even, I don't know, 10,000 emails or I don't know, it, in just 1 second and etc. So let's kind of focus more on the phishing side first. Well, lots of reporting have been done recently around AI being used by hackers, especially in phishing, like from Microsoft, for other companies. And actually, an interesting statistics came out recently that just since the launch of ChatGPT alone, the volume of phishing emails just increased by 1,000%. This is kind of a really scary, actually, figure. And when I first saw it, I was kind of stoned for a while. Then the phishing emails are getting more targeted and more successful, also the statistics show, because like the human generated emails before were, for example, 12% had 12% of click-through rate. Now the figure row increased and it's 54%, which is again quite significant, I think. And also, what refers to phishing, AI actually helps attackers to emotionally tune their emails based on the, I don't know, background of the target, based on their role. I don't know, because they can gather as much information as they can, and they're using that information against that person by, I don't know, crafting the emails and emotionally tuning them. And also some interesting statistics by comparing the human generated and AI generated emails in general. Like the first thing is the speed. Well, when a person creates an email, they just can't like craft a template, a successful template, just a one or two in an hour or so. But when it comes to AI, it can do like 100 plus emails. The scale is also pretty obvious when you can go and to research kind of a few individuals at a time just to adjust templates to them. But when it comes to AI, it can go on research like up to thousands of targets and deliver emails, personalized emails to all of them. The language quality is also not a barrier anymore, because when hackers had some kind of language issues because they were living in different regions, they didn't know English, for example, better, they used some grammatical errors. Now it's not a case anymore because AI is using pretty sophisticated language and it can cheat pretty and be pretty persuasive. The adaptation is also quite interesting here, because when something is failing during the way, you just need to go there, check the errors, check why the email was not delivered, etc. Now the AI can do it for you. It can go check and then adapt accordingly, and it will do like in an hours rather than in a day. So, and the cost is also kind of obvious here. And I just want to bring you like a pretty obvious example of such as GPT that was pretty common in phishing campaigns. It's one of them. It's not the only one. It was maybe most of the popular ones. It was Worm GPT that was actually launched in March of 2023. It was mainly used in business email compromises and also in making these phishing emails more convincing to the victims, like in terms of languages, tones, and etc. Also, this GPT actually helped the attackers to lower the skill barrier, because it was making social engineer much more accessible to bad people who were not as much skilled criminals, for example. So if you are even a script kiddie, I don't know, or a new beginning hacker, so this GPT was pretty helpful there as well. And let's go to the next kind of field that was very popular for AI being used in hacking. It was Reconnaissance. So previously, Reconnaissance was about, I don't know, running lots of scans, trying to analyzing the results, figuring out the weak points in the applications, and then using that information to target and attack. Well, when it comes to AI nowadays, you can like kind of fit anything to AI, starting from public documentation, API specs, I don't know, Swagger files, README files, blog posts, I'm not error messages, and it can just go and analyze everything like for you in just hours maybe, or even it depends on the amount, of course, volume of data you provide. And if before AI, the speed and accuracy were limited to the skills and effort of the attacker, nowadays it provides like I think enormous opportunities to the hackers in terms of reconnaissance because they can read all this documentation information about a company, for example, correlate everything, the assets, rank the targets based on the value that they think that are most successful for the attack, and actually even ask AI to generate the next step attack, possible attack path for the successful, I don't know, attack and etc. So it's pretty, actually for me it's pretty scary, to be honest. And the other field that again AI is getting pretty popular among attackers is deepfake. And actually this is maybe the scariest part for me because in this certain thing we are not attacking systems, we are not trying to break code or whatever, we are trying to break and kind of attack the human trust. So how much can we cheat them and pursue uh, make them think that we are real and to kind of do some malicious stuff with them. So the here, what attackers mainly do, they use voice clonings, that use video deepfakes, like generating video calls and uh, maintaining executive presence, for example, creating synthetic identities by creating accounts, even apply to jobs and pass onboardings. That is again pretty interesting, and also kind of step and defeat multi-person verification through deepfake group calls, which is also pretty interesting. And before going further, I would like to talk about a few pretty common cases that pretty recently came through. And one of them was China-affiliated threat actor that called Charcoal Typhoon. Maybe you've have heard about this group. It was OpenAI reported that they're actively using their LLM services to support real malicious activity. Of course, they said that they stopped them at some stage. I'm not sure whether that's true, but generally they used those LLM services to query open source information about various companies, debugging their code, generating scripts to actually break those codes, and creating lots of content for phishing campaigns. So, and Charcoal Typhoon actually is not the only one. There were different state groups that were using AI tools enormously in their malicious activities. And the interesting part here is that they did not use AI to create a zero-day attacks or create something new that were not uh, I don't know, known to the people. They were using AI just to make it their attack more targeted, more successful, and I don't know, more as much and get as much information as they can. But before going on to the next slide and next case, I would like kind of to ask you a question, just pause here. How many of you like would you trust a video call from your CFO? If you come to a call and actually see your CFO on that call, and you would say, "Okay, I will definitely this is a real one." Just you don't need to answer to this question. You just think about it because it's gonna get scary. Well, there was actually a pretty famous case in early February 2024 in Hong Kong. It was reported by their police that there was a huge fraud taken place. Actually, the victim was invited to a call by their CFO, and when he or she joined the call, there were also not only the CFO present, also some other their colleagues present in the call. The first thing before joining the call, the victim said okay, I was kind of suspicious, but when I joined and saw my CFO and my colleagues in the call, I was like, okay, this is good. This is something legitimate, right? But and actually the attackers convinced the victim to make like 15 transfers totaling in, I don't know, 25 million US dollars, which is not a small amount, of course, to 5 bank accounts. And only after checking with their headquarters did the victim realize that this was actually a deep fake. This was not real and it was scam. And he got deceived actually. So this is, I don't know. For me nowadays, I'm kind of I'm getting pretty, I know, very cautious about each call because you will never know. Like you should check like one, two, three times with the persons, with the people maybe to actually understand whether this is a legitimate call or not. Which is, and this is the beginning, I think, because well, AI is getting trained, and it will be maybe much easier to cheat in the future. I don't know, I cannot predict, but I think it's gonna happen someday. And why this is actually different from past automation, why we actually consider this a huge and important thing to think about, because automation is just a hard-coded steps. You write them beforehand, some instructions. This is fixed. You know how it's gonna be executed, how possible results, and also when some conditions fails or some security controls are being on the way, the script just stops, fails, and you need to adjust it manually to go through. What refers to autonomy or AI in this case, you give an objective to AI, you choose, you fit as much information as can you. For example, you allow AI to adapt dynamically to some changes, to acquired information, and the actions and steps can be changed. And also, AI can improve based on the feedback that they can get. So that's what actually differs this from just a simple automation, and what this is what actually makes it really concerning in terms of AI is being used by attackers. And just to recap, like this is a little bit the graph being comparison between human-driven campaigns and AI-driven campaigns. As you can see, it's the loop is getting shorter, and what is before it was slow and manual, and you need to kind of do lots of tries to have some successful result. Now the loop is getting shorter, and also actually the system, the model is getting trained based on the feedback. So even the failure, even the unsuccessful result can somehow help AI to get, get further and be actually more malicious than it was planned, for example. And a closing thought for me here is that so when we talk about AI going rogue, I don't. The main concern for me is not that it's not designed. AI is not designed evil by like intentionally on purpose. It's getting the main concern here is that it's given sometimes it's given like lots of autonomy, it's given a mission and goal, and it's just trusted fully sometimes by, I don't know, hackers and people. And that is maybe the scariest and the concerning part for me, that we kind of should be very cautious here and think about consequences sometimes what we actually train AI on, because it's it can get pretty uh, it can get pretty concerning, because at some point it just never stops. If you give them an opportunity, it will do whatever it's told forever. So it will fail, it will go again, again and again unless you stop them. So I just don't want to scare everybody. I just want to say that maybe that's why I chose health for this talk, because it's not that I'm not. When I first saw actually the movie, I thought, and it was like 20 years ago or so, or whatever. I when I saw it, I was saying, okay, this is total fiction. It's never gonna happen. But today, I think I'm kind of having doubts. I don't say that we're gonna go and I don't know witness a machine rise
Yeah.
or whatever. No, but actually, we're moving in some way in the direction that we can have some pretty bad consequences. I think in the future if we kind of don't do some extra steps here. This is my kind of talk in general,
Yeah.
what is I was about. Yeah.
Well, first of all, Victoria, amazing job. Like that was your first talk. That was incredible, and you should take a chance to look at the chat. It has been very busy. You've given us a lot of things to think about, and I think people really truly enjoyed your talk. Um, so thank you for doing that. It's really great. You talked about like AIs aren't malicious or anything on your last slide, and I yeah, I don't think AIs have morals. They just want to serve, right? Like
Yeah.
you give it a prompt, its job is to satisfy the instruction, right?
Hmm. Yeah, that is the main concern, that they don't question the intent. They just do what they are told to do. And that is the scariest part, actually, because when it comes to people, they sometimes they can just think twice. Okay, should I really do this? Or
Mm.
like it will always their conscience will always maybe work in some way. But in case of AI, there is no
Yeah,
conscience, so they just do what is told. So
and even if we told it to have morals and to question, even then, it's still just following instructions, and we've seen with prompt injection, like, even when you say, like, "Don't do this and don't do that," you can trick it into
yeah,
ignoring those rules.
definitely, yeah.
So, you mentioned, like, these breaches, these attacks that have been done on OpenAI and Claude
Mhm,
Claude, like there was a video I watched yesterday where they documented how Claude was used to do everything from recon, weaponization, all of the steps, right? And then eventually Claude discovered it and they shut it down, right? And
mhm.
that's nice, right? But are there not just malicious LLMs out there that are not going to have that kind of, moral compass, right?
I think they are pretty definitely, as I said, there are pretty lots of GPTs actually out there, and I think attackers are actually building their own maybe LLMs, because when it comes to known ones like OpenAI and etc., they're trying to kind of fight maybe against that. I don't know,
Yeah.
but generally, well, the tools are open for everybody, so even the attackers can build their own things and use it against the good AI, let's say it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you talked about you posed that question like, would you trust a phone call from your CFO, right? The funny thing is, you sparked a lot of debate, and the funny thing is, most of us would say probably no, because the CFO never calls me, right? Or I never get phone calls. Period. Right? Like it's all other things, right? But
Mhm.
I think Patty talked about it. Like, are we going to need some sort of identity, like source of truth or something? Like, how are we going to, because now it's so easy to fake almost everything. How do we know if, how do I know you're Victoria and not, a deep fake?
Well, sometimes even, I don't know, for example, when you get hired by a company, some companies even today, they go like through, I don't know, thousands of checks just to make sure you're not a deep fake, because there were certainly cases on the market that a deep fake was actually hired by a company. It was
Yeah.
very, I don't know, it was,
Yeah. They got a
it's really
job.
scary. Yeah. And sometimes I don't, I think the traditional ways of just going through, I don't know, interview, submitting a resume and going over everything and just being hired, okay, congratulations, will not work anymore. I think at some point, like thousands of checks and documentations maybe will be required just to simply say,
Ah,
okay, I'm a real person.
yeah.
You can trust me.
It's crazy. I see a lot of comments flying by. Definitely gonna have to read these later because I think you've sparked a really like significant conversation and debate. And it's really at the core of like, how are we gonna operate? Like, there's this human concept of default to trust, right? So historically, it has been very advantageous to trust by default, right? It just makes life easier. I don't have to like check everything a million times. It just makes the world happen smoother, right? But if we get to a point where nothing is trusted, it's going to be a massive friction on everyday little jobs that we want to like. If my mom calls me on the phone, I'm like, okay, mom, what did how did I break my leg when I was 5? Answer me that first, right? Like it's just gonna get in the way of everything.
Believe me, even I'm afraid that at some point in time, even questions to those answers will be known as well because people share lots of information nowadays. And
Yeah.
yeah, on the internet, and if you can, it's publicly available, you can go and grab that information. So that's why like privacy is getting more important nowadays because
Well,
of
for
this.
us old guys, there's no Facebook post with me as a broken leg, yeah, so there's that benefit, but for all of us digital natives, right? I mean, forget about it. It's all out there, and I guess that's why like social engineering and phishing is so good, right? It's not like misspellings and lack of context. It's like, no, I know you were at the basketball game last weekend. That was a great game, right? It's it, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, because the figures actually speak for themselves, like how social engineering is getting much more successful, and it's pretty no kind of interesting because people are getting more educated, but at the same time they are still getting cheated
Yeah.
by phishing.
It's happening. It's happening. Well, Victoria, thank you again. You did amazing. This was
Thank you.
incredible. We'd love to have you back for future AppySecCon if you're up for it.
Sure, thank you.
All righty. Very good. Well, so let's call it there.